"This is your birthday present, Mom," my daughter said, sliding an envelope across the table in front of dozens of guests. "3 days to pack your bags and get out of my house." Laughter rippled through the restaurant. Some tried to hide their smirks behind champagne glasses. Others whispered openly. I sat frozen, staring at the eviction notice in my hands, my stomach twisting until I thought I might collapse right there in front of them all. That was how my 65th birthday began, with betrayal instead of cake, humiliation instead of love. But before I go any further, let me tell you who I am. I'm Margaret, a 65-year-old widow and mother. I've spent my entire life sacrificing for my family, only to be treated like a burden. And if you're following this story, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because if you've ever been betrayed by the people you raised, you'll understand exactly what I'm about to share. Jessica, my daughter, leaned down so only I could hear. "You've embarrassed me long enough. Consider this a fresh start," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Jessica, you can't be serious." She straightened, her smile cruel. 3 days. Don't make me call the sheriff." Gasps filled the room. Then came more laughter. Sharper this time. A cousin whispered. "Pathetic." One of Jessica's friends said loud enough for half the table to hear. "Even her own daughter doesn't want her." I pushed the papers back. "This is humiliating. Why would you do this? Here, in front of everyone?" She shrugged. "Because people should know the truth. You've been living off me for years. It's embarrassing." The whispers grew louder, the humiliation pressing down like a weight on my chest. My hands trembled. "I am your mother." She folded her arms. "And I'm done taking care of you." The room went silent. I felt like I might collapse right there in front of the owner. My 65th birthday was like this. No one defended me. No one stopped her. I looked around at faces I thought were family, friends, people who'd once called me generous, strong, dependable. Now they looked at me like I was something pitiful, disposable. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the floor, the sound sharp against the silence. "This isn't how family treats each other," I said, though my voice cracked. Jessica tilted her head, smirking. "Family or not, you're leaving." The laughter followed me as I grabbed my purse and walked out, my heels clicking across the tile. The cake sat untouched, the candles flickering like cruel little torches behind me. I didn't blow them out. I didn't make a wish. I walked into the night with nothing but betrayal burning in my chest, already knowing this story wasn't finished. Not even close. When I left that restaurant, my legs carried me home on autopilot. The night air was cold, sharp against my cheeks, but nothing stung more than the sound of their laughter still echoing in my ears. My own daughter had humiliated me in front of everyone, and I couldn't even defend myself. By the time I reached the house, my house, or at least I thought it was, the street was dark. I dug through my purse for my keys, desperate just to get inside, to close the door behind me, to breathe. But when I slid the key into the lock and twisted, it wouldn't turn. I frowned and tried again. No give. I jiggled it harder, panic rising. The lock was new. Jessica had changed it. I stood there on the porch, clutching the useless key, my hands shaking as if the whole world had just shifted under me. My own daughter had not only handed me an eviction notice at my birthday dinner, she had already locked me out of the house before I even got home. My neighbor's curtains twitched. A man across the street paused mid-step to stare. I felt heat creep up my neck. Humiliation again. Right there on my own doorstep. I pounded on the door. "Jessica, open this door right now." No answer. "Jessica, this is still my home." My voice cracked. Silence answered me. I sank down on the porch, tears burning my eyes. When my phone buzzed, a message from my bank. I unlocked it with trembling fingers. Account frozen. Suspicious activity detected. "What?" I whispered. I tried logging into my account. The screen blinked. Access denied. Another buzz, credit card declined. Automatic bill payment canceled. It felt like someone had pulled the ground out from under me. No house. No access to money. No way to even buy food if I wanted to. My phone rang then. An unfamiliar number. I answered with a shaking hand. Mrs. Thompson. A clipped voice said, "This is Alan, your branch manager. I'm calling because your daughter authorized a freeze on your joint accounts today. She said you may not be in a stable condition to handle your finances." I shot to my feet. What? She has no authority to do that. These are my accounts. My money. I understand, the banker said quickly. But she came in with documentation. We're legally obligated to freeze the assets until verification is complete. Documentation? My voice was sharp. She forged something. Didn't she? I can't confirm that over the phone. He said carefully. But I suggest you come in with your lawyer tomorrow. Bring proof of your ownership. My lawyer. Robert. Thank God for him. I hung up, my chest heaving, fury mixing with despair. Jessica hadn't wasted a second. She wanted me erased out of the house, out of the bank, out of my life entirely. The porch light flicked on. Through the glass, I saw movement. Jessica appeared in the hallway, phone in hand. She opened the door just enough to lean out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Oh, Mom. Still here. I told you 3 days. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You froze my accounts," I said through gritted teeth. She smirked. "I had to. You've been reckless. It's for your own good." "For my own good?" I laughed bitterly. "Locking me out like a criminal? Draining my money? Don't be dramatic," she said. "Go find a motel. Or a retirement home. Maybe you'll finally learn how to live without clinging to me." With that, she shut the door. The lock clicked into place. I stood there, my fists clenched, shaking so hard I thought I'd collapse. But I didn't. I forced myself to breathe, to straighten my back. She thought she'd won. But she didn't know the truth, not yet. Because what she didn't understand was that the house, the very one she just locked me out of, had been placed years ago into a trust fund. My trust. My property. And once I proved it, her whole little empire would crumble beneath her. The morning after my humiliation on the porch, I woke up stiff from sleeping in my car. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from cousins and family friends. None of them asked how I was. They just wanted gossip. By the afternoon, I heard Jessica had called a gathering at her house. My house. She invited relatives, neighbors, anyone who might listen. And she had something new to show them. I arrived late, standing in the back doorway while she stood at the center of the living room, holding up a stack of documents like a prize. "See?" she told them, smiling wide. "Here's proof. The property is mine now. Mom signed it over years ago. She's been staying here out of kindness, not because she owns anything." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. A cousin shook his head. "Poor Margaret. No wonder she's being put out." Another whispered, "She probably doesn't even understand the paperwork." Jessica's right, she's too old to manage it. The words burned like acid in my ears. I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the chatter. "That's a lie. I never signed anything." Jessica turned, feigning surprise. "Mom, you're here. Shouldn't you be packing your things instead of causing scenes? Where did you get those papers?" I demanded. She smiled innocently. "From the county clerk's office. All official. Stamped and signed." I looked closer. Even from a distance, I recognized my supposed signature. But it was shaky. Uneven. Nothing like mine. A forgery. "You faked this," I said. My voice trembled. But not from fear, from rage. Her friends laughed. One said, "Come on, Margaret. Are you really accusing your own daughter of fraud? That's low." Jessica crossed her arms. "You're confused. Maybe even sick. That's why I had to take responsibility. Everyone here knows it's for your own good." The crowd murmured again, this time more certain. Heads nodded. People whispered words like senile and unstable. I wanted to scream, to rip the papers out of her hands. But Robert's words from last night echoed in my mind. Don't fight her lies with anger. Fight them with proof. So I forced myself to stay calm. I straightened my jacket and looked around the room. Believe what you want, I said. But the truth has a way of surfacing. And when it does, I hope you remember this moment. Jessica laughed, her voice dripping with victory. The truth is right here, Mom. On paper. And no one believes you anymore. I turned and walked out, my heart pounding. Behind me, laughter and whispers filled the air, the sound of betrayal wrapping around me like chains. But as humiliating as it was, I knew something Jessica didn't. Those papers in her hand? Fake. Weak. Easily torn apart once the right person saw them. Because the real documents, the ones her father and I had signed years ago, were still locked away. Untouched. Unchallenged. Waiting for me at the bank. And when I brought them out, Jessica's laughter would die in her throat. The next day, I woke up with a pounding headache and a hollow ache in my chest. I had barely slept after the scene on the porch. My car seat had become my bed. The street lamp my nightlight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's smirk as she told me to get out. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed with messages. A cousin wrote, "We heard Jessica showed everyone the papers. Why didn't you just sign things over properly?" Another one chimed in, "It's embarrassing. Margaret, you should just let her take care of things." Take care of things? She had locked me out of my own home and drained my accounts. And now she was parading fake paperwork like a circus act. I decided to see it with my own eyes. When I got there, the driveway was packed. Cars lined the street. My house, the one I had built with my late husband, looked like it was hosting a Sunday barbecue. I slipped in through the side gate and stood by the patio door, watching. Inside, the living room was full of people, relatives, neighbors, even some of Jessica's coworkers. And there she was, standing in the middle like a queen, holding a stack of papers above her head. "See?" Jessica said, her voice dripping with triumph. "It's all here. The deed. The transfer. Everything signed. This house is mine now. Mom just doesn't want to admit it." The crowd murmured. Heads bobbed. Some clucked their tongues in pity. A neighbor whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Poor woman. Getting old is sad. Can't even understand her own paperwork." Another said, "Jessica's doing the right thing. Margaret should be grateful someone is stepping up." I felt my stomach twist. I pushed open the patio door, and the room fell silent for half a second before the whispers doubled. I walked in, my heels clicking against the tile. "Jessica," I said, my voice sharp, "where did you get those papers?" She turned, pretending to be surprised. "Mom, didn't expect you here. Shouldn't you be at a motel by now? Answer me," I said, ignoring the laughter that rippled through the room. "Where did you get them?" She held them up like a trophy. "From the clerk's office. Stamped and sealed. Your signature. Right here. You signed the house over to me years ago." I stepped closer. The papers shook slightly in her hands, but her smile stayed fixed. I looked at the scrawled signature at the bottom of the page. My name but not my handwriting. "That's a forgery," I said. "I never signed that." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A cousin laughed nervously. "Come on. Margaret, are you really accusing your own daughter of fraud? That's a bit dramatic." Jessica widened her eyes, feigning innocence. "See what I mean? She's confused. She doesn't even remember what she signed. That's why I had to take charge. Someone has to look out for her. She's unstable." Another relative whispered, "I heard she yelled on the porch last night, like a crazy person." The laughter grew. It felt like every whisper was a stone thrown at me. My face burned, my chest tight. "I am not unstable," I snapped, my voice rising. "And I did not sign those papers." Jessica turned to the crowd. "See? This is what I've been dealing with." She forgets. She denies. That's why I had to step in. For everyone's sake. For her sake. A woman from across the room spoke up. Jessica. You're a saint. I don't know how you do it. Jessica pressed her hand to her chest, acting touched. Thank you. It hasn't been easy. But someone has to protect her from herself. I wanted to rip the papers from her hand, to shred them in front of everyone. But I remembered what Robert told me the night before. Don't fight lies with anger. Fight them with proof. So I steadied myself, forced my hands to unclench, and looked around the room. You all think this is the truth because you see ink on paper, I said. My voice firm despite the tremor in my chest. But ink can lie. Stamps can be forged. And when the real documents come out, I hope every single one of you remembers how quick you were to laugh at me. The room went quiet. Jessica broke the silence with a laugh. Mom, please. Everyone here can see the truth. You're embarrassing yourself. Again. Her friends laughed. My cousins shook their heads. The humiliation was thick in the air, pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I turned, my voice low but steady. Enjoy your little show, Jessica. It won't last long. Then I walked out, my spine straight, even though inside I was crumbling. The whispers followed me all the way to the street. But I held on to one thing, the knowledge that her papers were fake. Fragile lies. The real truth was sitting in a vault at the bank. And once I brought it to light, the smirk would vanish from her face. The morning after Jessica's little performance, I walked into Robert's office with the forged papers still burned into my memory. He looked up from his desk, glasses perched on his nose. Margaret, he said, standing to shake my hand. I heard about last night. Sit. Tell me everything. I sat down, my fingers digging into the armrest. She showed everyone so-called documents saying I signed the house over to her. People believed her. They laughed at me. Robert. They looked at me like I was senile. Robert adjusted his tie. Calm as always. And you didn't sign those papers? Of course not. I snapped. The signature was nothing like mine. It was a joke. He leaned back. Then we'll let the truth speak. Margaret, do you remember when your husband passed? We set up a trust. The property was transferred into it. You are the trustee, the sole beneficiary. Jessica has no legal right. The words were like a glass of water in the desert. My shoulders dropped. So it's still mine? He smiled faintly. It always was. And it always will be. By afternoon, we were at the bank. The air inside was cool, sterile. I walked up to the desk with Robert at my side, my heart pounding so loudly I swore the whole lobby could hear it. The manager, Ellen, recognized me immediately. Mrs. Thompson. We spoke on the phone. Yes, I said, my voice sharp. And I'm here to fix the mess my daughter created. Robert placed a folder on the counter. We'd like to see the records for the Thompson Trust. Deed transfers, original filings, anything that shows ownership of the house and assets. Ellen nodded, motioning us into a private office. He clicked on his computer, typing quickly. Minutes later, he slid a thick file across the table. There you are, he said. The Thompson Family Trust, established 20 years ago. Primary trustee Margaret Thompson. Beneficiaries, Margaret Thompson. Secondary designation, none. I flipped through the pages, my fingers shaking. There it was, my husband's signature. My name. The notary seal. Clear. Undeniable proof. Robert pointed. This document alone invalidates anything Jessica has been showing around. If she forged transfer papers, she's in serious legal trouble. Ellen frowned. Mrs. Thompson, would you like me to make certified copies? We can also flag any suspicious attempts to access these assets. Yes, I said firmly. Do it. Ellen left the room. Robert leaned toward me. Margaret, this is the first crack in her wall. She tried to play games, but now we have the hammer. I exhaled. my hands finally unclenching. She paraded those lies in front of the whole family. She humiliated me. Then let her humiliation be just as public when the truth comes out. Robert said. Alan returned with a neat stack of certified copies, stamped and sealed. I held them like they were a weapon, because in many ways, they were. This, I said, my voice steady now, is the end of her little show. Robert nodded. Not quite the end, but the beginning of hers unraveling. As we left the bank, sunlight poured through the glass doors. For the first time in days, I felt something that almost resembled strength. Jessica thought she could bury me under lies, but now I held the truth in my hands. And when I used it, her laughter would turn into silence. 2 days after my meeting at the bank, the certified documents sat in my purse like a hidden blade. I carried them everywhere, even to bed, because I knew Jessica wouldn't stop. And I was right. It started with the phone calls. Cousins, uncles, even people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to check on me. Margaret, one of them said cautiously, "We heard from Jessica that you've been confused lately, forgetting things. She's worried about you." I gripped the phone tighter. Confused? I know exactly what's going on. She's lying to you. A pause. Then a sigh. We just want what's best for you. Maybe letting Jessica handle things is safer. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. By the afternoon, my neighbor knocked on the motel door. She shifted nervously, avoiding my eyes. Jessica came by. She said, "Told us you've been yelling at people, saying strange things. She said you might not be safe on your own." I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. That's what liars do, they double down. But inside, the sting cut deep. My daughter wasn't satisfied with trying to take my home. She wanted to take my mind, my dignity. Later that evening, Robert called. His voice was low, urgent. "Margaret, she's filed a petition with the court. She's trying to claim you're not mentally competent to manage your affairs." I almost dropped the phone. She what? She attached medical records, old ones, from when you were hospitalized after your husband passed. She's twisting them to make it look like you're unstable now. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. She's trying to have me declared incompetent? Yes. If she succeeds, she could take control of everything, your accounts, the trust, the property. For a moment, the walls closed in, the room spinning. But then I remembered the file in my purse. My proof. My shield. I steadied my voice. "Robert, can she actually pull this off?" He exhaled. "Not if we fight. I'll arrange a psychological evaluation with a licensed doctor. Neutral. Court approved. That will shut this down fast." The next day, as if to twist the knife deeper, Jessica gathered relatives again. I didn't go inside this time, but I stood across the street, listening through open windows. "She's sick," Jessica told them, voice dripping with false concern. "I love my mother, but she's not herself anymore. Last week she tried to break into the house, screaming at me. I had to call the bank just to protect her from draining her own money. It's heartbreaking." A cousin sniffled. "Oh, Jessica, you're such a good daughter." I clenched my fists. Then she pulled out the forged deed again, waving it like gospel. This is why I had to take action. Look, sign. Sealed. Official. Mom doesn't even remember signing it. How sad is that? Gasps. Murmurs. Head shaking. The crowd ate it up. I stepped out from the shadows, my voice slicing across the lawn. "You're lying, Jessica. And deep down, you know it." She spun around, her face pale for half a second before she forced a smile. "Mom, please, you're embarrassing yourself again. Go rest. Everyone can see you're not well." The crowd looked at me with pity, with judgment, with disbelief. I saw what Jessica wanted them to see. A broken old woman clinging to a story. But what they didn't know was that the real story, the real truth, was waiting to be unleashed. And when I revealed it, Jessica's empire of lies would collapse in front of every single one of them. The courthouse smelled like old wood and nerves. I sat at the long table next to Robert, my lawyer, while Jessica strutted in on the other side with her attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Jessica didn't look at me. She adjusted her pearl earrings, smoothed her dress, and whispered something to her lawyer, then smirked. The judge entered. We all stood. My heart hammered in my chest. Case of Jessica Thompson versus Margaret Thompson. The clerk announced. Petition for guardianship. Guardianship. Such a polite word for theft. The judge peered over his glasses. Mrs. Thompson, your daughter has filed a petition claiming you are unable to manage your affairs. We'll hear arguments. Jessica's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client has acted only out of concern. Mrs. Thompson has shown erratic behavior, attempting to force entry into the house, shouting at neighbors, making irrational accusations. Furthermore, she has a history of emotional instability following her husband's death. It is clear she cannot manage her finances responsibly. He handed over a folder. Exhibit A, medical records. Exhibit B, witness statements from neighbors. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Jessica lowered her eyes, pretending to be pained. I just want what's best for her. Your Honor, she said sweetly. Robert stood. Calm. Steady. Your Honor, my client is perfectly capable of managing her own affairs. The so-called exhibits are misleading at best. And we have evidence that not only is Mrs. Thompson competent, she is the sole trustee of a property trust her late husband established 20 years ago. My client owns her home. Her daughter is attempting to seize control through forgery and manipulation. The judge raised an eyebrow. Forgery? That's a serious accusation. Robert nodded. Which is why we've requested an independent psychological evaluation, conducted 2 days ago by a court-approved doctor. He handed over a sealed report. The findings confirm that Mrs. Thompson is of sound mind and fully capable of handling her own affairs. The judge opened the envelope, scanning the pages. Silence filled the courtroom. My palms sweated as I watched his eyes move line by line. Finally, he looked up. The evaluator found no evidence of mental incompetence. In fact, Mrs. Thompson demonstrated excellent recall, reasoning, and judgment. Petition denied. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Jessica shot to her feet. That's impossible. She's confused all the time. She's lying. The judge slammed his gavel. Ms. Thompson, sit down. Robert rose again. Your Honor, we also have certified documents from the bank proving that the house is held in a trust, with Mrs. Thompson as sole trustee and beneficiary. Any transfer papers Jessica has been showing are fraudulent. Gasps echoed. The judge frowned, adjusting his glasses. Ms. Thompson, do you have an explanation for this? Jessica's face flushed red. She stammered. I must have been misinformed. I only wanted to help. Robert's voice was steel. Help? By locking her out of her home, freezing her accounts, and spreading lies about her mental health? This is elder abuse. Plain and simple. The judge's gavel struck again. That will be enough for today. I've heard enough to know this petition is not only unfounded but deeply troubling. Mrs. Thompson, you remain in full control of your affairs. Thompson, consider this a warning. If evidence of fraud comes forward, you will face serious consequences. I rose to my feet slowly, steadying myself. The whole courtroom watched. Jessica stared down at the table, her smirk gone, her face pale. I leaned close enough for her to hear me as I walked past. You wanted the court to call me incompetent. Instead, they called you a liar. Her shoulders stiffened. She didn't look up. As Robert and I walked out of the courtroom, sunlight spilled through the glass doors. For the first time in weeks, I felt like the weight pressing on my chest had lifted. Jessica had tried to bury me with lies, but the truth had clawed its way out. And this was only the beginning. Losing in court didn't stop Jessica. If anything, it made her more dangerous. 2 days later, my phone buzzed nonstop. First, I thought it was more cousins calling with fake concern. But when I opened my messages, I froze. Screenshots, links, comments. Jessica had gone public. On her Facebook page, she posted a long, dramatic note. I love my mother, but she's not well. The court doesn't see what we live with every day. Her confusion, her anger, her outbursts. I only wanted to protect her. Please don't judge me until you know the whole story. Attached were pictures of me, taken without my knowledge. One of me sitting on the porch the night she locked me out, my head in my hands. Another of me arguing with her through the door. Out of context, they painted me as unstable, fragile, pathetic. The comments poured in. You're such a strong daughter. Jessica. Elder care is hard. Bless you for taking responsibility. Your mom is lucky to have you. Each word was a dagger. By evening, her post had over 2,000 shares. Local gossip pages picked it up. Strangers commented like they knew me. Crazy old lady. Poor Jessica. Must be hard living with that. I sat in my motel room, the glow of the screen reflecting off the tears I couldn't hold back. She wasn't just stealing my house, she was stealing my dignity, my reputation. Robert called. His voice was grim. I saw the posts. Don't respond. Don't say a word online. Let her dig her own grave. But people believe her. I whispered. For now. He said. But lies spread fast, and so does the truth. Once we release it. The next morning, the tide began to turn. A neighbor's son, college kid, smart with tech, posted a thread on Twitter. He compared Jessica's photos to the court documents. Funny how Jessica claims her mother is incompetent when just yesterday a judge ruled otherwise. Here's the proof. He attached the evaluator's report. Public record. The thread blew up. Thousands of comments flipped the narrative overnight. Wait, so Jessica lied in court? She locked her mom out and called it care? That's abuse. This daughter is evil. Protect Margaret. By noon, hashtags with my name trended locally. News outlets sniffed the story. One headline read, Daughter accused of elder abuse after public feud goes viral. Jessica fired back with another post. Don't believe everything you read. My mother has been manipulated by greedy lawyers. But the comments weren't siding with her anymore. Greedy lawyers? Or greedy daughter? You humiliated your mom on her birthday. There's video. Imagine treating your own mother like trash. Disgusting. Video. That word made me sit up. Someone at the restaurant had filmed the moment she handed me the eviction notice. The clip hit TikTok. Millions of views. The laughter of the guests. My stunned face. Jessica's cruel smile, it was all there. The comments under the video were brutal. She really said happy birthday. Now get out? Trash daughter. This woman deserves jail. Protect the mom at all costs. I stared at the screen. Stunned. For weeks, I'd been humiliated, gaslit, silenced. Now the world finally saw what I had lived through. Jessica had tried to bury me under lies. Instead, she had buried herself. And it was only going to get worse for her. By the end of that week, I couldn't open my phone without seeing my own face. Headlines splashed across news sites. Birthday eviction goes viral. Daughter accused of elder abuse. Reporters called non-stop, knocking on the motel door, leaving business cards under the frame. Robert told me to stay quiet. The more you speak, the more she'll twist it. Let the evidence do the talking. But Jessica couldn't keep quiet. She went live on Instagram, sitting in her living room, the same living room she had tried to steal, crying for the camera. I don't know why everyone's against me. She sniffled, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I've only ever cared for my mom. She's sick, and people don't understand. Now strangers are threatening me because of lies. Comments flooded in. You humiliated your mom on her birthday. We all saw it. Stop pretending you're the victim. Where's your proof? Oh right. Forged papers. Jessica's crocodile tears didn't land this time. The world had already seen too much. 2 days later, I got a call from Detective Harris with the county police. His voice was firm. No nonsense. Mrs. Thompson, we've received multiple complaints about possible forgery and elder abuse involving your daughter. We need to ask you some questions. Robert and I met him at the station. The walls smelled of coffee and dust. Harris flipped open a file. Your daughter presented documents claiming she owns your house. We've compared them with county records. The signatures don't match. There's also evidence of alteration in the notary stamp. I leaned forward. So she really forged them? He nodded. It appears so. We'll be sending these to the state lab for confirmation. But it doesn't look good for her. Robert added calmly. We have certified trust documents that prove Margaret's ownership. Copies have already been filed with the court. Harris closed the file. That's strong evidence. If the forgery is confirmed, your daughter could face charges for fraud, possibly elder abuse. Are you willing to cooperate with the investigation? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Later that evening, news trucks parked outside the house. Reporters swarmed the lawn. Cameras flashing. One shouted, Jessica, do you have anything to say about the forgery investigation? Jessica slammed the door in their faces, but the damage was done. By nightfall, every major network carried the story. Daughter under investigation for forgery after viral eviction video. The comment sections were merciless. Throw her in jail. She tried to ruin her mom and ruined herself. Greed always shows. Inside my motel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the certified documents spread across the table. For weeks, I had been silenced, mocked, treated like nothing. Now the law itself was turning its eyes on her. Robert called again. His tone was lighter this time. The dominoes are falling. Margaret. She can't spin this anymore. Not with police involved. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. For the first time, I believed him. Jessica had thought she could rewrite reality with forged papers and pretty lies. But the truth was finally catching up to her. And soon, it would knock on her door with a batch. It was a Friday evening when the knock came. Firm, heavy, impossible to ignore. I wasn't there. But neighbors told me later how it went. 2 unmarked police cars pulled into the driveway. Officers stepped out, their jackets marked with the county seal. Cameras followed close behind. News crews had been camping on the street for days. Jessica opened the door. Her hair a mess, eyes swollen from sleepless nights. She tried to block the entrance, but Detective Harris's voice cut through the chaos. M.S. Thompson, we have a warrant to search the premises for evidence of forgery and fraud. Gasps rose from the crowd gathered across the street. My cousins, my so-called friends, the same ones who had laughed at me weeks earlier, were now clutching their phones, live streaming her disgrace. Jessica's voice cracked. This is harassment. I didn't do anything wrong. Harris handed her the papers. Step aside. Ma'am. Reluctantly, she moved. Officers swept inside, heading straight for the study. Minutes later, they emerged with files, computers, even the printer she'd used to fabricate the deed. One officer carried out a folder with drafts, practice signatures, my name written over and over again. The reporters shouted questions. Jessica, did you forge your mother's signature? Are you facing elder abuse charges? Do you regret humiliating your mom? Jessica shielded her face, but the cameras caught everything. The image of her standing in the doorway, pale and shaking, was broadcast that night on every local channel. I watched from my motel room, the television flickering. For weeks I had been the one humiliated. Now the tables had turned. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls from relatives who had once mocked me. Margaret, we had no idea. You must be so hurt. We should have believed you. Is there anything we can do? I let them talk. Let them beg for forgiveness. But I remembered every whisper, every laugh, every pitying look. The next day, the police announced a formal investigation into Jessica for fraud and attempted theft. Social media exploded. Hashtags calling for her arrest trended for hours. Memes mocked her eviction stunt. The video of her crying on Instagram was remixed into parody clips that spread faster than she could delete them. Jessica called me that night. Her voice was hoarse. "Mom, please. You have to help me. Tell them I didn't mean it. Tell them I was just confused." I held the phone to my ear, letting the silence stretch. Then I said, calm and cold, "You wanted me gone. Jessica. Now it's your turn to feel what it's like to lose everything." She sobbed, but I ended the call. As I set the phone down, Robert's words echoed in my mind. "Let her humiliation be as public as she made yours." And it was. For once, the world wasn't laughing at me. They were laughing at her. The week after the police raid, my life felt strangely quiet. For the first time in months, I wasn't waking up to whispers, frozen accounts, or the weight of humiliation pressing on my chest. Instead, the noise had shifted entirely onto Jessica. Her face was on every screen. Local woman investigated for forgery against mother. The story spread beyond our county, picked up by national outlets. Talk shows replayed the birthday video, shaking their heads in disbelief. Commentators called it the ugliest family scandal of the year. One afternoon, Robert and I walked up the familiar driveway of my house. My house. The officers had returned the keys after confirming what I had known all along. The property was mine, locked into the trust, untouchable by Jessica. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and inhaled the scent of home. For weeks, I'd been exiled to a motel. Now I stood once again in the living room where Jessica had staged her performance. A knock came at the door. When I opened it, Jessica was standing there. She looked nothing like the polished woman who had once paraded forged papers in front of our family. Her hair was uncombed, her makeup smeared, her hands trembling. "Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please. You have to talk to them. Tell the police you don't want to press charges. If you don't, I could lose everything. My job, my reputation, maybe even my freedom." Behind her, a reporter crouched by the mailbox, camera rolling. Jessica hadn't even noticed. I studied her for a long moment. This was the same daughter who had handed me an eviction notice on my birthday, who had laughed as I walked out humiliated, who had locked me out and called me senile. And now, here she was, begging. "You wanted me gone," I said quietly. "You wanted me erased." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong. Okay. I was stupid. Please, just tell them it was a misunderstanding." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Do you know the difference between you and me, Jessica?" She swallowed hard, shaking her head. "You tried to steal with lies. I fought back with truth. And the truth always wins." The words landed like a slap. Her face crumpled, her body folding in on itself. I shut the door. The lock clicked, sealing the conversation and her fate. Later that night, the clip hit the evening news. The camera had caught enough. Viewers saw Jessica pleading, saw me closing the door without a backward glance. The commentators didn't need to explain. The image said it all. For weeks, I had been the punchline of my own family. Now, Jessica was the cautionary tale, her name synonymous with betrayal and downfall. And me? I had my house, my dignity, and one final line that echoed louder than her laughter ever had. "You tried to throw me out, Jessica. But in the end, you only threw yourself away."